Mountain goes up like that, from the road up.
And the volcano must
And the
doesn't spare.
That's right. And here on the top of the mountain it's a volcano. Okay, a volcano. It's a big crater. Which is a crater is a big hole, dark inside, dark hole. Okay, and beneath that crater, inside the mountain, there is this volcano. And what is a volcano? It's a lot of smoke and a lot of fire, right? And stones, big stones, and hot, terribly hot lava, okay? And as Jaja and Michaela look up what's going on, everything starts blowing.
And the fire and the volcano and fire.
That's right. And fire and smoke and stones.
Hello. This is Moments with Marek. My name is Raphael Webb, and this episode is entitled Paternal. I want to start off with an incident that occurred around the beginning of 2021 when I was staying at my father's apartment and I was sleeping in the living room, and around 3 o'clock in the morning I was awakened to see a shadowy figure standing over me. And that shadowy figure happened to be my father. And he was just standing there and staring at me. And then he asked me, he said in Polish, "Powiedz mi, kto ty jesteś?" Which means, tell me something. Who are you? So I recovered from my shock, and I got up and I put my arm around him and I said, "Dad, it's me. It's Rafael. I'm your son." And he said, "My son? I have a son?" And I said, "Yeah, Dad, it's me." And I don't really think at that point I convinced him that he had a son, but I was able to slowly walk him back to his room and put him back into bed. And then I went back to the couch and lay down. And for the next hour, sometimes with tears in my eyes, sometimes without, I suddenly had to grapple with what I knew was coming, but what I had dreaded all along, and that being that at some point my father would stop recognizing me, and thinking about how I would handle that. And so that's what this episode basically focuses on, the evolution of my father's paternal instinct as he was afflicted with Alzheimer's disease. And I figured that the best way for you to understand what was lost is for you to hear about my father's paternal instinct, his love as a father and as a grandfather, from those who experienced it the most beside myself. And that would be my two children. My father was not only a great father, we've already talked about that, but my father was a wonderful grandfather. He loved his grandkids. He loved engaging with them. He loved telling them stories. He loved making faces. So one of the joys of his life was to be a grandfather. And so what I asked my kids to do was to come up with a memory of their Jaja that they think about, that they associate with him most vividly. So let's go ahead and start with my daughter, Michaela. Here we go.
It was the time of COVID, and I only got to speak to my grandfather through phone calls. He didn't get to see my face. He only got to hear my voice. And I'm still not quite sure he knew exactly who I was. And towards the end, his speech became very broken and fragmented, and it was hard to understand what he was saying. But through that broken speech, what he said on the phone every single time without fail was that he wanted me to come and see him. Or, when are you going to come and see me?
And now I would like to turn the mic, I guess, so to speak, over to my son, Andrew.
My favorite memory of my Jaja would probably come from the year 2016. It was this year that I had a big phase in which I was very into magic, and I would bring my cards around and my magic kits around to everyone I could, and I would perform my card tricks, my magic tricks, whatever. Most people would just go along for a bit and blow it off or get annoyed. But when I visited Queens that summer and did magic tricks for my Jaja, he sat for hours and never complained and went along with everything, act surprised even though he probably knew exactly how the trick worked. And he made me feel appreciated for what I was doing at the time, and that meant a lot to me.
And so now that my children have described their moments with their Jaja Marek, I would like to talk to you about the moment with Marek that I am actually referring to in this episode, because I did describe to you that moment when he woke me up and scared me and didn't remember who I was. And that's a very vivid memory for me, one that I'm not particularly fond of, but one that I have no choice but to hold on to. But the moment that I would really like to talk about, and the one that I really want to hold on to, is something that happened about 6 months prior to that incident. And that being when I was on the balcony with my father. And we were just talking, and I became extremely upset about something. My father, I don't even remember what it was, and for the purposes of this discussion, it doesn't really matter. I became extremely upset about something, and I began to cry. And to my surprise, my dad suddenly took on a look of complete distress on his face. And he approached me, and he said in Polish, nie synku, shoń, nie synku, which translates to, no, son. Shoń was his way of trying to calm me down. It's something he'd used with me since I was a little kid. Anyway, no, son, calm down, however you want to translate it, that's what it translates to. And he took his hands and he cupped my face with his hands, trying to calm me down. Any father seeing their child that distressed would respond in this way. And so even though my father was at this point falling off that cliff, sliding into Alzheimer's uncontrollably, he had not yet at that point stopped being totally the old Marek, my dad, who looked at me when I was in distress and remembered that he had a job as a father, the same kind of job I try my best to take on when I see the same kind of distress in my kids. And that's the moment that I want to hold on to. That's the moment that I want you to remember about my father, that up to a certain point, he still had that beautiful paternal instinct in him that unfortunately Alzheimer's robbed him of, and ultimately robbed the rest of us of too. But I've determined I'm going to hold on to that moment that positive moment as one of my most vivid memories of my father. So that's this episode, and thank you, and I'll be back soon. Until then, everybody take care.